What kind of manager takes money from a kid bagging groceries in the summer heat? That question wouldn't come until later. For now, Curtis Reed stood in front of one of his own stores, wiping sweat from his neck and staring at the automatic doors like he was a stranger. 11 locations. He'd bought the small grocery chain 8 years ago from a retiring couple who'd run it like family. He kept the name, the employees, the systems. Just expanded, brought in better tech, better margins. But over time, he realized something was off. Customer feedback was slipping, and turnover in Store 6 had spiked in the last year. Nothing dramatic, just a slow bleed. The district manager, Carl, said it was staffing issues. Kids not wanting to work anymore, usual stuff. But Curtis didn't buy it, so he put on a gray delivery polo, faded jeans, and a pair of thick-rimmed glasses, trimmed his beard down, let his hair grow out a touch. No one in this store had ever met him, not in person. It was a corporate structure. Most workers had no clue who owned what. He signed fake new hire documents under the name Chris. The cover was, training for a regional delivery partner who might bid for local contracts in the future. Store manager approved it. No questions. Day one, he was bagging groceries by 9 a.m. Double paper, then plastic, said Olivia Rayner, a cashier in her early 20s with a tired but sharp voice. People around here hate crushed bread. She didn't smile, but she wasn't rude either. Curtis nodded. Got it. Double paper, plastic. She glanced at him. You've never bagged before, huh? Not officially, he said. She sighed. Don't worry, you'll learn. Just don't talk too much. Marco's watching. Marco was the store manager, mid-40s, lean, always moving fast, but never seemed to do much. He barked orders more than gave direction. Curtis noticed that right away. Anytime Olivia asked for more change or help with a return, Marco took forever or passed it off to someone else. By lunchtime, Curtis had bagged for 3 different checkout lanes. His back hurt. His feet throbbed. He hadn't done physical labor like this in decades. But what stuck out more than the physical exhaustion were the people. He met Jamal, a 16-year-old high school sophomore saving up for his first car. I do weekends and after school, Jamal said, grinning, trying to hit $2,000 by August. Then there was Rose, pushing 60, part-time bagger, full-time guardian to her grandkids. This isn't retirement, she said with a dry laugh, but it's honest work. Curtis was impressed by how hard they worked, how polite they were to customers who barely looked at them. But something strange happened every time a customer handed a tip to a bagger. Marco would swoop in. Around 2 p.m., a woman handed Jamal a $5 bill. Thank you, sweetheart, she said. You're always so kind. Before Jamal could pocket it, Marco stepped in. Store policy. Tips go through me. Jamal hesitated. I thought that was only for cashiers? Marco's voice dropped. You want hours next week? Jamal went quiet and handed it over. Curtis watched the whole thing. Later, in the stockroom, he asked Jamal, Do you get it back later? Jamal shook his head. Nah. He says it gets pooled for store events. But we never see anything. Curtis's stomach twisted. He didn't say anything. Not yet. By day 2, Curtis had seen Marco intercept at least 3 more tips. He even took a 10 from Rose. She didn't argue, but the look on her face said everything. What does he do with it? Curtis asked Olivia quietly. She looked around, cautious. We think he keeps it. Nobody's seen a penny from any pool. I brought it up once. He cut my hours for 2 weeks. Curtis clenched his jaw. That legal? She laughed bitterly. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. That night, Curtis sat in his car in the parking lot, staring at the windshield. He felt sick, not just from what he saw, but from the fact that it had gone on this long, under his name. He thought back to the couple he bought the business from, how they used to handwrite birthday cards for employees, how they'd built a place people were proud to work at. What the hell happened? And more importantly, how much of it was his fault? He didn't sleep much that night, but he knew what he had to do. Tomorrow, he'd stay late. Watch what Marco did with the cash. No more guessing. He wanted truth, and he wasn't leaving until he had it. Curtis stayed after his shift ended, pretending to stack soda pallets near the stockroom entrance. The store quieted down around 7. Customers thinned out, and the evening crew trickled in, half as many people as the daytime team, barely enough to keep things running. He kept an eye on Marco. The manager had disappeared into the back office with a backpack slung over one shoulder, not the kind of thing you'd carry inside a store during a shift. 10 minutes later, he walked out without it. Curtis waited, then slipped into the hallway behind the freezer units. The office door was closed, but the light was on. He listened. No voices, just the soft hum of a fan. He waited until closing. At just past 10, when the last customer left and the security shutters rolled halfway down, Marco finally returned to the office. The moment the door clicked shut, Curtis moved. He knocked once, then opened the door without waiting. Marco looked up from the desk, startled. A drawer was open in front of him. Inside, Curtis caught a glimpse of a wad of small bills, fives, and singles, mostly rubber banded together in several thick rolls. Marco's hand hovered over a notepad, where Curtis saw rows of tallies. No names, just dates and dollar amounts. "You need something?" Marco's tone flattened, defensive. Curtis pointed to the drawer. "What's all that?" Marco didn't blink. "Store cash, end-of-day tips from the register, goes into miscellaneous." "That from the register?" Curtis tilted his head. "Or from the floor?" Marco closed the drawer. "Look, I don't know what you're fishing for, but you're out of your lane. You're a delivery trainee. You don't have clearance back here, and you're already pushing it." Curtis stepped back. "Right. Sorry." He left without another word, but his mind was racing. There was no legitimate reason for that cash to be off the books, and no tip policy he'd ever approved diverted employee tips to a manager. The next morning, Curtis arrived early before the store opened. He waited by the loading dock where morning deliveries came in. An older employee, Dan, was unloading pallets of water with a dolly. Curtis offered to help. They worked in silence for a while, until Dan finally said, "You're not really a driver, are you?" Curtis paused mid-lift. "Why do you say that?" Dan looked over his shoulder. "Because drivers don't ask about Marco's tip stash, and they don't offer to unload 40 cases of bottled water for free." Curtis smiled faintly. "What else do you know?" Dan leaned on the dolly. "Been here too long. I've seen every trick. Marco's not the worst manager I've had, but he's the most slippery. He knows how to play the system, pushes hours around, hides things in reports, clocks out early, but stays in the office. The guy's a ghost in the books. Why hasn't anyone reported him?" Dan snorted. "To who? Corporate? HR? We don't even have a store rep anymore. That position's been under review for 13 months. Curtis nodded slowly. "What would you do if you were in charge?" "I'd bring back the old way," Dan said with a shrug. "More people who actually give a damn in charge. Less clipboard managers, more floor walkers. This place used to be tight. Now it's just tired." Curtis thanked him and walked inside, his thoughts turning. By midday, another pattern emerged. Marco was assigning extra tasks to employees who'd spoken up recently. Olivia was stuck cleaning freezer doors with a bottle of diluted vinegar and no gloves. Jamal was sent to sweep the parking lot in the heat without shade. Rose was told to scrub the restroom floors, despite it being the janitor's job. Curtis approached her during a break. "Shouldn't facilities handle that?" Rose wiped her forehead with a paper towel. "Should, yeah, but Marco said the janitor's hours got cut. Figured I wasn't doing much bagging today, so here I am." Curtis scanned the employee schedule posted by the time clock. The janitor, Miguel, was listed for a full shift. He found Miguel later, stocking shelves in aisle 9. "I thought you handled cleaning," Curtis asked. Miguel looked up. "I do, but Marco made me shift to inventory today. Said we were light in aisle coverage." "Did he say who's cleaning the restrooms?" Miguel shrugged. "I asked. He said Rose could handle it." Curtis felt his fists clench. It wasn't just about the tips. Marco was manipulating the schedule, pushing unpleasant tasks onto people he saw as disposable. At the end of the day, Curtis walked out with Olivia. She didn't say much until they reached the parking lot. "You're not just here for training," she said. Curtis didn't answer. She stopped walking. "So what is this? An audit? Corporate check-in?" He looked at her. "What would you want it to be?" She hesitated. "Honestly, I want someone to care enough to fix this. We're not asking for miracles, just fair treatment. respect. A manager who doesn't punish people for speaking up. Curtis met her eyes. What if someone did care? She gave a tired smile. Then maybe I'd finally stop looking for a new job. That night, Curtis made 2 calls. The first was to HR, requesting Marco's payroll records and a breakdown of his logged hours over the past 6 months. The second was to his COO, asking for a confidential audit of Store 6's cash flow, specifically unreported income and discrepancies in tip allocations. The next morning, he returned to the store in a pressed shirt and slacks. Marco spotted him from the front counter. "You're early," he said, voice clipped. "I'm not here to work the floor today," Curtis replied. Marco narrowed his eyes. "Then why are you here?" Curtis stepped forward. "Because I own this company, and I've been watching." Marco blinked. His mouth opened, then closed. "You've been stealing from my employees," Curtis continued. "You've been manipulating schedules to punish them, and you've been lying about your hours." A cashier nearby froze mid-scan. 2 customers turned at the raised voices. Curtis didn't care. "You're done," he said. "Effective immediately. You don't step foot in this store again." Marco stammered. "You can't." "I can, and I did." Curtis turned to the assistant manager, a quiet woman named Lana who'd kept her head down all week. "You're in charge until we install a new manager. HR will walk you through it, and I want employee feedback on my desk by noon tomorrow. Anonymous, honest, unfiltered." Lana nodded, wide-eyed. Curtis walked to the back office, opened the drawer Marco had used, and dumped the entire stash of bills onto the break room table. "Split this among the people who earned it," he said. "And from now on, tips stay with the workers. Period." He looked at the stunned employees gathered nearby. "No more silence," he said. "If someone mistreats you, you come straight to me. This place runs because of you, and from now on, you're going to be treated like it." Curtis stayed at Store 6 for the rest of the week, not as Chris, not undercover, but as himself. He didn't announce it to the public, didn't bring in a film crew or wear a suit. He showed up in jeans and a tucked-in shirt, with a pen clipped to his collar and a notebook in his back pocket. The employees didn't clap or cheer. They were cautious, curious. Some avoided him. Others watched, waiting to see if anything would actually change. On Thursday morning, Olivia walked into the break room and saw Curtis sitting at the corner table with a clipboard and a stack of forms. "You're actually doing this," she said, leaning against the vending machine. "No point in asking for anonymous feedback if I disappear right after," he replied. "I want to hear what's working, what's broken, and what's been ignored." She looked down at the papers. "You think that'll fix this?" "I think it's a start," he said. "But I need something else from you." She raised an eyebrow. "I want to know who's been taking on the extra weight. Who's been stepping up without being asked, and who's just skimming by." Olivia didn't answer right away. Then she said, "You'll get more honesty from watching than from those forms." "Then I'll do both," Curtis said. He spent the next 3 days on the floor, not as an owner, but as a presence. He didn't hover, didn't bark orders. He stocked shelves alongside Dan, checked inventory counts with Lana, and helped Jamal bring carts in during the lunch rush. He kept his eyes open and his mouth mostly shut. What he saw was a system stretched thin and held together by a handful of people who cared more than they should have had to. Lana, the assistant manager, was sharp and organized. She had a dry sense of humor and knew the floor plan better than the back of her hand. But she'd been held back, passed over for promotion twice. Both times under Marco's recommendation. Curtis found the reports in her personnel file. "Not assertive enough with staff," one read. "Too focused on process over productivity," said another. He watched her run a shift on Friday evening with 4 people down from the schedule. She rerouted stocking to cover the registers, managed a vendor delivery, and handled a customer return dispute without raising her voice once. After the store closed, Curtis caught her near the office, wiping down the schedule board. "Why didn't you ever report Marco's evaluations?" he asked. She didn't look up. "Didn't think it would matter. I figured if I kept the place from falling apart, someone would notice eventually." Curtis nodded. "Someone just did." She turned, cautious. "What does that mean?" "It means you're the new store manager. Effective Monday." She stared at him. "Seriously?" "You earned it," he said. "And I've already cleared it with HR. Your pay will match the responsibility. But I need one thing from you in return. What's that? Honesty, he said. If something's wrong, I want to hear it before it becomes a crisis. No more silence. Lana nodded slowly. Deal. Saturday brought another challenge. The afternoon shift was short a cashier. The sublist had dried up, people either found other jobs or stopped responding. Olivia volunteered to stay 2 hours late. Curtis caught her after her shift ended. You didn't have to cover that register. She pulled her hoodie over her head. I know, but I knew if I didn't, someone else would get stuck. You've done that a lot, he said. Covered for people, stayed late, cleaned up after others. She shrugged. It's a job. You do what has to be done. Curtis looked at her. What are you working toward? She hesitated. Honestly, trying to save enough to finish school. I dropped out after my mom got sick. Then she passed. Been working full-time ever since. You want to go back? She nodded. I've got 2 semesters left. Just need to get through the next few months. Curtis reached into his pocket and handed her a folded envelope. There's a scholarship program we started last year. Nobody applied from this district. I'm changing that. She unfolded it. Inside was a check for $5,000. She stared at it. Is this a joke? It's not charity, Olivia. It's recognition. You've been carrying more than your share. Time someone carried you for a little bit. Her hands shook slightly as she folded it back. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he said. Just apply. We'll pay the rest. You've earned it. He left her in the break room, staring at the check in her hands. Sunday morning brought a different kind of confrontation. Curtis was walking the front aisle when he overheard a customer yelling at Jamal. The man was in his 50s, red-faced, demanding something about a mispriced item. Jamal stood frozen, gripping the edge of the counter. I don't care if you're just a kid, the man barked. You don't know how to do your damn job. Curtis stepped between them. That's enough. The customer looked him up and down. Who are you supposed to be? I'm the owner, Curtis said, and you're done here. You think you can ban me because I raised my voice? No, Curtis said. I'm banning you because you disrespected my employee. He didn't make the pricing decision. He did nothing wrong, and I don't let people come into my store and yell at teenagers like they're punching bags. The man muttered something under his breath and stormed out. Jamal let out a long breath. You all right? Curtis asked. I thought I was going to get written up, Jamal said. Curtis shook his head. You're getting a raise. Jamal blinked. Wait, what? You've kept this place running with half the help you need. You show up, you work hard, and you deserve more than minimum wage for it. Jamal's voice was quiet. Nobody's ever said that to me before. Curtis clapped a hand on his shoulder. Get used to it. By the end of the week, the atmosphere in the store had shifted just slightly. People still moved quickly. The floors still needed buffing, and the freezer still groaned when it kicked in. But the silence was gone. People talked more, helped each other without being asked. They still looked tired, but now they didn't look invisible. Curtis didn't make speeches. He didn't call in balloons or banners, but he did one more thing before he left. He called an all-hands meeting right after closing on Sunday. Everyone gathered by the registers. No one knew what to expect. Curtis stood in front of them and spoke plainly. I came here thinking the problem was laziness or bad attitudes. I was wrong. The problem wasn't you. It was leadership that stopped listening. And that's on me. He looked around the room. I saw people doing 3 jobs. I saw people showing up on time, staying late, covering for each other without complaint. I saw pride. I saw hurt. And I saw strength. He paused. You deserve better. And from now on, that's what you're getting. That starts with fair pay, real recognition, and a manager who's earned your respect. He nodded toward Lana. Her promotion is just the beginning. We're bringing in more staff. We're reinstating full break coverage. And we're launching a direct reporting line straight to me because I won't let this place go quiet again. He folded his hands. You've kept this store running long after others would have walked away. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not going anywhere. Neither is your value. He stepped back. No applause, no cheers. Just a quiet shift in the room, like something long held had finally been let go, and something honest had taken its place. Curtis was back in the corporate office by midweek, sitting in a glass-walled conference room with his operations lead and HR manager. The air was stiff, quiet, the kind of quiet that only came when people were expecting fallout. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Store 6 didn't fall apart because of one bad manager, he said. It fell apart because we built a system that stopped listening the second things looked fine on paper. No one responded. The HR manager shifted slightly, flipping to a page in the file she'd brought. They weren't just ignored, Curtis continued. They were punished for asking to be treated like people. That's not a management problem, that's a leadership failure. Ours. He tapped the table once, sharp and final. I want new protocols for store manager evaluations. No more internal promotions without floor references. No more rubber-stamped reviews. I want a direct line between stores and this office, and I want it staffed by someone who's spent at least 2 years on a grocery floor. The operations lead cleared his throat. That'll slow the pipeline. You sure you want that kind of delay? Curtis looked up. I'd rather move slow and keep people than move fast and replace them every 6 months. The HR manager nodded without speaking and started scribbling notes. By Friday, Curtis was back at store 6, not undercover, not observing, just checking in. Lana met him at the front with a clipboard tucked under her arm and a pen behind her ear. We're short 1 cashier and 1 cart runner for the afternoon, she said. But I've cross-trained 2 of the stockers. They volunteered. Curtis nodded. How's morale? Still tense, she said. But people are starting to believe we're not alone in this anymore. He walked the floor with her. The lighting hadn't changed. The scuffed tiles were still scuffed. But the rhythm of the store felt steadier, less frantic, a little more human. At the end of the bread aisle, Rose was organizing loaves by expiration date. She didn't glance up when she spoke. Heard you're back in your high tower, she said. Curtis smiled. Briefly, she stood up straight and turned. You know, I've worked under 6 managers in this store, she said. Most of them meant well. One of them broke down crying in the stockroom after a staff meeting because she was so burned out. Curtis waited. But this is the first time I've seen someone come back after fixing something. Most people fix it and leave. I didn't fix it alone, he said. No, she agreed. But you didn't pretend it wasn't broken either. She went back to facing the shelf. Curtis walked on. In the back room, Jamal was breaking down cardboard boxes with a box cutter. His movements were more relaxed now, but still methodical. Curtis leaned against the wall. You decide what kind of car you're saving for? He asked. Use Civic, Jamal said. Reliable, cheap parts, good mileage. I've got a spreadsheet. Curtis grinned. Of course you do. Jamal looked up. So, is that guy really gone, Marco? Completely, Curtis said. He's not coming back. There's a formal investigation ongoing, and we've already flagged his name in the hiring system. Jamal nodded. Good. Then he paused. You don't think it was weird how nobody stopped him before? He asked. Curtis didn't pretend to have an easy answer. I think people get used to things when they're tired, and when they think no one will believe them, they stop speaking up. I almost quit, Jamal said. Twice. I told myself it wasn't worth it, but I needed the hours. Curtis stepped forward. If you ever see anything again, anything that doesn't sit right, you come straight to me. No chain of command, no filters. Jamal nodded slowly. I believe you, he said. Curtis left him to finish the boxes and headed back up front. The checkout lanes were busy. Olivia was behind register 2, scanning items while chatting with an elderly customer. Her posture was different now, more solid, like she wasn't bracing for something anymore. When her line thinned, Curtis stepped over. You start classes next month, right? He asked. Yeah, she said. Evenings and Saturdays. I'll still work the mornings. You'll need a lighter load, he said. Let Lana know which days you need off. We'll work around it. She raised an eyebrow. You sure? Curtis looked at her evenly. Helping someone get ahead isn't a loss. It returns in ways you don't see right away. She cracked a small smile. You sound like someone who's been reading HR manuals. No, he said, just someone who wasted too many years thinking numbers told the whole story. A customer stepped up with a full cart, and Olivia turned back to her register. Curtis stepped aside and walked toward the front exit. On his way out, he passed the community board by the entrance. It had been cleaned old flyers replaced with fresh postings. One caught his eye, a handwritten note with colored marker. Employee potluck, Thursday at 4 p.m. in the break room. Bring something if you can, no pressure, let's eat. Underneath, in small letters, we're still here. Curtis stood there for a moment, reading it again. Then he walked outside and let the door close behind him. It had taken time to fall apart. It would take time to rebuild, but it was happening. Not because of policies, not because of pay raises, because people had finally been seen. And once that happened, everything else could follow.